are you ready to get fired up? Because I sure am. I've got a special treat for you today. I've got Chris Lee with me here. He is a father, family, and business, and he actually just recently sold a business from zero to $180 million in 4.5 years, bootstrapped right from his garage selling solar. Now, if that isn't something where you're leaning in, you must be living under a rock. He also has the Founder Podcast. So write that down right now, the Founder Podcast, so you know where to find him, because you're going to love him. I just got done being on his podcast and we had a great time. So I'm super excited about this right now. So Chris, welcome. How are you?
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Krista. Thanks for having me.
You know what I think is really great is like for you to do that. It almost seems like $180 million seems just completely, for most people, unfathomable to do that kind of money selling solar. So can you kind of bring us through the journey? Because I want to open up people's eyes as to what's possible.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been in the business world for the last 19, almost 20 years, and, been involved in all different types of things. The fact of the matter is I've had probably more failures than successes. And so, it's really easy to look back at, building my business out of my garage as like, wow, almost overnight success or whatnot. But there's a foundation of many sleepless nights and bankruptcy and losing everything and, struggling to make ends meet at certain times. I think anybody that's an entrepreneur understands that, like, in order to get there, you got to go through a ton of failures to make that happen.
Yeah, 1,000%. I know that to be the case. People just they're afraid to fail, so they don't do anything and they just freeze and they don't have the chances to go up. So tell me a little bit about, like, what did you do before that?
Yeah. So, I've always been in the home service space. Most of my background was in the door-to-door sales. So, I grew up in a home of a school teacher. My dad was a school teacher. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, 7 kids. And so we didn't have a lot. And I learned at an early age how to work. It wasn't very smart work, but I knew how to work hard. My dad taught me a lot of discipline. Even though he didn't make a lot of money, he was a very disciplined investor, very disciplined with his time and expenditures and everything else. And so I learned a lot from him. And then my mom was a big dreamer. And so I always believed that anything was possible. And my first job I had at the age of 9, and paid for everything but food on the table and underwear. And so it was a great childhood, which taught me a lot. And when I was 18 years old, I was introduced to sales, which was really where my life began to start changing from a financial aspect. Because I saw a little flyer I was attending the local community college while I was still in high school. They have this program called a Running Start in Washington State, where you attend college while you're a junior and senior in high school. And saw this flyer, and it said, make at least $13 an hour. And, for me, I was like, what is this little at least thing? Like that seemed pretty cool. And so come to find out, go ahead.
At least I get it. You're like, yeah, back then.
Yeah, I'm like, at least. And, that this was a day and age where minimum wage was probably $6 or $7. And so 13 seemed like, 1, a lot of money, and 2, that it was at least that. I was like, what? And so come to find out, it was selling Cutco knives. And, I went through the whole process, found out I was pretty good at talking to people. And so I could go into any old farmer's wife's home and walk out with a $1,200 check from which I would take 25% of. And
man, that's great.
That was pretty awesome, like to be able to do that, to make $300 in an hour as an 18-year-old kid that was between my junior and senior year at high school. It was pretty phenomenal. And
what do you think makes you be able to do that at that young age? And somebody, what is it? You had some type of skill. And do you think that skill can be trained and learned and taught? Or what do you think? I mean, and don't give me the BS answer. I want the truth. Like, what do you think it is?
Yeah, there's definitely nurture and nature. You can nurture your way into some of that. A lot of it was nature. I had the nature as a young person that was very goal oriented. I at 6 years old, I was writing goals and throwing them up on my wall. And like at the age of 12, I had money saved up for a diamond ring for my wife because I knew one day for me, family and was very important, and I wanted to model my parents, and so getting married at a very young age was like part of my goal structure. And by age 12, I had money put away to put a ring on a woman someday. I didn't know who that woman was going to be, but that was important to me. So once again, but a lot of it was nature, but was also nurtured into me, right? Like my parents showed me like what was important, putting God and family first, and from there, I believe in a God that wants us to be successful and wants us to have the desires of our heart. And there was two things I knew from a very young age. One, I wanted to have an incredible family, and two, I wanted to be rich. Like those were the two things that drove me. The only example in my life at an early age of riches was my grandpa. So my mom's dad, he was a doctor, and he, in every sense of the word, in my mind, had money. And then meanwhile, my dad had come from kind of a more of a white trash type background. His dad was a drunk. And so kind of two worlds collided when my parents got married. And so I had these just crazy different end of the spectrum examples going on in my life. And so a lot of like just my work ethic and drive and desire to be rich was from the nurturing that was going on in my household, and seeing kind of just the distinct polar opposites of how life could be. And so that because of that, like I desperately wanted to be successful, and I knew that in order to be that, I had to work my way out of it. And so you could say some of it was natural. I've never struggled at selling. Like I just haven't, but I've become better and better. And I think sales can be something that's learned. But you're in a high advantage if you have a DI personality on the disc assessment, right?
That's
Where
me. I'm
where
like
you have
super.
so
Yeah, say that's very true. I think you gotta love
yeah,
people, and
so
yeah.
yeah, so a dominant personality helps, and I've always had. It's funny. I was a very nice, tenderhearted kid, but somehow I developed a dominant personality over time, and a lot of it was just through experiences that I had of failure, of like having my dreams kicked in early on with sports and all these different things that like just I made some choices that were really really difficult. And when outside influences were impacting, like for example in sports, I wanted to win a state championship, and I thought it was going to be a certain route of becoming a quarterback, and that position was taken from me by coaches, and I decided I wasn't going to let them control me. So I gained a bunch of weight and became a lineman, and we still ended up winning a state championship. And that taught me different things of like, regardless of what your goals are, and you think the route to success is going to be a certain way, you just have to find a different route to get there. And
Hmm.
so, I mean, just so there was just so many different things, a way that I was nurtured into becoming a great dominant force in sales and whatnot. And so much of that was, I was in door to door sales for many years, and anybody that's ever
Too.
done door to
Door to
door
door sales
sales, it's
is rough.
brutal.
Yeah, so rough. You got lots of
You
rejection.
you've got to learn to deal with doors slammed in your face, guns pulled on you, threats being made, police being called, and like still keeping a positive mental attitude that like the next door is going to be different. And I did that for years and made a lot of money doing it. There was years that I made close to $500,000 over a 4-month period knocking doors. And, and so that was where a lot of
Wow.
my entrepreneurial background was forged. And then it was forged in at the age of 24. I launched my first business, raised some money from some different investors, lost everything. $2.2 million bankruptcy in 2010, beginning of 2011, had less than $1,000 in my bank account, car repoed out my driveway. Me and my wife were pregnant with our third child. Uh, you know, starting over from scratch in 2011. I mean, those are like a lot of the foundational experiences, I guess I'd say
When
that,
that happens, when you have, getting your car repoed with your wife pregnant with, I mean, how do you, like you asked me the question, how do you, that's a really tough mindset. How did you pull yourself out of that?
well, couple
And let me
things
just say one
there.
more thing first. You said $500,000 for 4 months selling Cutco. Oh my goodness.
It wasn't Cutco, but yeah, selling home security.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I got to be pretty good. There was, and that was actually after my bankruptcy, that I went back to work for other people.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, how did I get through it? One, uh, is keeping priorities straight. Like for me, the most important thing in the world has always been God and family. And during those times of difficulty, when the points were wiped off the scoreboard, I had to remind myself, like, still, God's still there for me. My family is still important, and these things. And then on top of it, the points have just been wiped off the scoreboard. It hasn't eliminated my ability to play the game. And so, I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, they work for solely only the scoreboard. My shift, it was in my career, was when I realized that, like, it's not the points on the scoreboard that I'm working for. I'm working to be better at the game, and just improving my skill sets, because that can never be taken from me, regardless of whether the game is over and I have to start fresh. And so,
That was brilliant. What you just said, like just that one piece is a is a save that. Like, oh.
yeah, so for me, there was a lot of people in my ear that said, stop chasing the money, stop chasing the dream, like go back to school, get a real job, like, because I was planning on being a doctor for most of my life. As I told you, the one example of riches was being a doctor, and that was my plan all along. And um, and so that actually helped for me. Like, I'd hear those and I write it down and use it as fuel to keep going. And so that, like, to this day in my notes, I've got words of people, of the haters that told me to go back and get a real job. And so immediately I started another business in the same industry, because I actually knew what I had done wrong, and just needed the slate wiped clean. And so, but the next 2 or 3 years I spent just trying to build from scratch, and knowing that I needed more. Like, I was scared of scaling, I was scared of growth. I wanted to have everything kind of in my locus of control, and so because of that, I operated very fearful for the next couple of years. I made decent money, enough to put food on the table and whatnot, but I wasn't growing. And so ultimately I decided to go back and work for other people. And I spent the next 4.5 years working for other people between 2012 and 2000, mid 2016, or end of 2016. And from that, studied what I call my paid education, where my whole intention of going and working for these companies was to study the CEOs, seeing how they were growing and scaling, how they were building culture, how they were making decisions, what their strategies were. And so while everybody else was there to make a paycheck, I was there taking notes of like, why is the CEO doing these type of decisions? And meanwhile, making a lot of money. Like I said, I was making up to $500,000 working for these businesses. And it was just a remarkable time in my life in which I didn't have the pressures. I was able to operate under somebody else's risk portfolio, right? Like it wasn't a huge risk for me to work for these guys. And then ultimately walked away end of 2016 with a decision that it was time. It was time for me to go and spread my wings, and did some soul searching for a few months and figuring out what I wanted to do next. I did a bunch of international energy projects. I took a course on Facebook marketing and drop shipping, and ultimately designed a business that I was going to create, and launched it out of my garage in November of 2017. And from day one, everything was done by design and not by default. The culture I created, the offer that was on the table, the way that we recruited and trained, and what expenditures we were willing to take on, and what we were investing our money in. And so we bootstrapped that thing out of my garage, and it was the first 2.5 years we were out of the garage, and by the time we had left.
Okay, so you're out of your garage by 2.5 years.
Yep. So by the time we left our garage, 2.5 years, we had done close to, it was like somewhere between 50 and $75 million in business. And my garage isn't a typical garage. It was a shop. We ended up finishing it out and everything like that. It was really cool. And we had 53 employees showing up and running their computers out of my garage every single day. The parking was crazy. My wife was a saint for dealing with it. But yeah, we made it happen. And then we end up going, and we had a temporary space, and then we built this big, beautiful national headquarters. And ended up selling off to private equity. I stayed on for another year after that. I stepped down as the CEO of the business almost a year ago. It was April of 2023. My last year running that business, we did $233 million in revenue. And, it was just...
So you were selling security. What, like... So were you teaching?
This was in the solar industry, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Solar. Okay, solar. Circular was the other one. Okay, wow, man, that is insane. So you were teaching. Do you think that the sales skills that you teach to somebody who's home service business knocking on doors is the same as you would teach somebody like to teach like phone sales, outbound type of things?
Absolutely. So when I launched my business, I was dead set on never having to knock another door. And so we figured out, we were pioneers in our space on what we call digital door knocking. Prior to us, nobody was in the home service space was doing any digital door knocking. They were doing, inquiry based, which is like Google, PPC, and that type of stuff, where people were inquiring about it, but nobody was using Facebook or Instagram or YouTube from an informational education side. And the reason why I call it digital door knocking, because the reason why door knocking works is somebody is having their state changed, right? They're overcoming, an initial objection, being educated on something, and then they buy something that they didn't necessarily know that they needed, right? That's why door knocking works, right? Because I go and I knock on a door, they didn't buy a security system because they were looking for a security system. They buy a security system because you educate them on why they need, they have a certain pain that this fulfills. And so I applied the same thing into marketing. And so for me, it was like a mind-blowing that, like, the hardest thing as a door knocker was I could not replicate myself across many doors at once. I was in one door at one time, and the only way I could replicate myself was through recruiting and training people, but it was only one door at one time. Now, digital door knocking, I could be on in front of 10,000 screens at one time and
Mm-hmm.
knocking on their screen, identifying a pain, educating them about the product, boosting an interest where they would, do a consultation with us, and then we would, provide a solution to their pain. And so we built that from day one without door knocking. And initially, it was generating leads online and sending people to their homes to close down the deals. And then eventually, it was building out a sales floor. And at the height of our business, when I walked away, there was a sales floor of 300. We had a 300 sales floor person, and this was from setters and closers, and we were generating 1,000 leads on a daily basis of interested home buyers, or sorry, interested homeowners. So yeah, like definitely this applies to any sales space, right? The same principles and design or whatnot. It doesn't matter what product or service you have, you can apply this. And me and Alex Hermosi, a good friend of mine, we've talked about this. Like, take any business and apply a sales floor to it, and you're going to be able to blow it up. Like, I don't care what your product, I don't care if you're selling coaching, I don't care if you're, in the home security space or solar space or roofing or, software, whatever it is, you go and you apply a sales floor to it, you're going to go and crush.
So it's interesting that you're saying that, because right now I'm in a process where we need to create that. We used to do like, we would run Facebook ads and we'd have setters and then we have closers. Well, now there's, as we were talking about artificial intelligence, that really, like, they're building this stuff that they can be the setters, right? Like, as long as it's fed correctly and all that. So if somebody like myself, do you teach that, Chris?
Right. Yeah, I do. Yeah. So I have a course called Next Level Home Pros. About 90% of it applies to any industry. The other 10% applies to people that are in the home improvement space. But yeah, as far as like sales, marketing, I also host masterminds where high level people come in that are business owners that are running already successful businesses. We come in, we spend 3 days, and we dive into personal business, the whole address all the leadership issues, that type of thing.
Gotcha. So I wrote that. I just typed that down. But I mean, so does your course teach you how to, like, to find a sales team, hire a sales team,
Absolutely.
train the sales team,
Yep.
all of it?
All
Man.
of it. All that good stuff.
Wow. That's something that right now I need. Is it a long course?
I would say probably my gift to humanity is I know how to build teams, how to, we were in 2021, we were the 6th fastest growing privately held company, any industry in the nation, right? Like, so Financial Times identified us as that, and we were literally growing so fast. It was unbelievable. Like, I would come in every Monday, my HR team with my process that I had built out had, 20 to 30 people sitting in a new orientation. We'd have this full on boot camp in which we train and get people up to speed. But that was every single week for years. And, and so that is probably, like I said, my skill set is being able to I train, impact, implement teams, do training in sales, marketing, those type of things. But at the same time, being able to build a team that can go and fulfill from an operational standpoint.
Yeah, on top of that. Whoa. So that's kind of what you're doing right now, more than just like the podcast, the Founders Podcast. It's more of that.
Yeah. So kind of our whole business model, whenever anyone asks me about it, I let them know. So the Founder Podcast is kind of just very top funnel, like people to find me and to get information for free. Like, my mission right now. So I run a company called the Founder Project. So now that I've stepped away from, and I've sold off to private equity, this is like my passion. My passion is to change the world through entrepreneurship. And because I believe that there is more to entrepreneurship than just helping people get a paycheck. I think that we can help them become better physical stewards, economic stewards, association, and spirituality. And that in order to run, like, if people ever, when people ask like, what was your secret sauce of building an 1,100 person team? I'll tell them that. I'm like, look, I didn't just focus on my people getting a paycheck. I taught them how to be more spiritual, be better physical stewards, how to be better impactors of their community. And so my
Mm-hmm.
dream is to go and impact billions of people by helping spread this message. So the founder project is a couple fold. We have a front end and a back end. The front end is education, right? I teach free education through my podcast. I also have pay windows from my course and masterminds and those type of things. And if people never progress past any of that, like if they just want to go and find me on YouTube or Spotify or whatnot, and they get that, then that's fine. Like I'm fulfilling my mission. If they want more, I know that people, when they pay more, they get more. So they go further on down. But then the back end, what I do is for people that go and actually implement what I teach, we invest into business. We run a private equity back end where when somebody starts implementing our systems, we'll actually come and invest into their business, or we'll consult in their business, or we'll sit on their board, or whatever it is. And so that's kind of the front end, back end. And it's really just my passion that I see doing for the rest of my life. Cause I tried retirement for 6 weeks and it was the worst 6 weeks of my life.
Oh, it's so funny. I know. I love working. I have my overarching goal is very similar to yours. Like in my manifesto, it says, I'm building community market leaders across the country who make an impact on their communities and who are go-givers. I help others achieve more in life and have more financial freedom and time. Like I'm all about it. So, but I love work. And so I have to literally make myself stop, working. And my husband is the most important thing to me. And so I have to watch that balance because both of us like to work and he likes to play. And I have to be like, okay, we need to spend time together. I cannot work every single weekend,
Right.
because it's kind of like a hobby, but it's almost a sickness, I think, too, sometimes, this is amazing. I'm going to definitely look into to your stuff. So for those of you, first, can I keep picking your brain a little about the sales part of it? Is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
So right now I'm like really looking into the whole AI stuff for calling because we've had like 250,000 people on our list, around 27 or 8,000 active that engage in everything. But what we've been doing is we've been doing a 3-day event every month where we bring entrepreneurs in and we teach them high ticket sales, and we would bring it or we bring in realtors and we teach realtors how to utilize digital marketing and social media to dominate their markets, right?
Yep.
And then we sell high ticket. And then there's all these other leads that for the past 6 years we're not doing anything with.
You're not nurturing.
We're nurturing. So with like tons of value, like our open rate is insane. Like this guy's like, I cannot believe your open rate, because we're always giving like value offer, right? Value offer. So tons of value, and we run brand awareness campaigns with video views. But the point is like, there's just some people that are never going to spend $20,000 or $10,000 or $12,000 or $50,000 on a coaching program, right?
Right.
But there's some that are. They just need a little bit more time. They're not going to do it at that event. So we want to build a sales team.
Absolutely.
And do you want to know what my mind kind of said, which is crazy, but this is when that person gave their notice, I was like, I didn't want to hire anybody else, but maybe that's the reason why, because this person can now fill that role, and it's not costing me more money. Does that make sense? That's kind of what my brain was doing too.
Yeah.
Because we need this. And then you get on here, I'm like, oh, the universe, but I've been having a hard time finding like that right person to teach me how to build it, what to say, what to do. Cause like the KPIs, the SOPs, all that stuff, it's just a lot,
Right.
And I hate phone sales. I could never teach it because I've never done phone sales.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you definitely have the right product to be able to go and implement a phone sales team. And so, I'm always hesitant to ever call it a call center. That in my vocabulary, that's the F word. Sales floor is much more non-demeaning towards the group that we're conjuring up. So, but yeah, you definitely have a perfect product to be able to go and apply a sales floor to.
And would you say that's in person, or could it be digital? Like, meaning, can people work around the country, or do they have to be in your garage?
it could be either one. I'm a big believer in person, right? So like I built two different in-person sales floors, but it absolutely can be just the difference between in person and virtual is culture, right? Like,
Culture,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, culture will always be. I mean, in person will always trump virtual because of culture, right? Like people feel it, they're around other people, there's an energy, whatnot. You can do your best and you can create this virtually, and I've done both. I've done virtual and in person. But yeah, and the thing is, a lot of people will be like, well, I don't have access to a lot of talent. Man, I built this sales floor out of a small town. I mean, a town of like 200,000 people, where not a lot of talent to be able to pull from. It wasn't a big city or anything else, and I was able to bring them in and centralize them, and where they're creating sales all over the U.S.
That's so awesome. So now, then one last question, then I'm going to quit being greedy and taking up your time about this when everyone's listening. But this is good. I'm always trying to learn too. Um, so with artificial intelligence, we were trying to kind of wait a little bit because I mean, there's like Perry Belcher and Ryan Dice. They have this amazing and there's a bunch of different ones, right? Software where it can call people and take and literally do the job of the salesperson based upon all the questions that you feed it and teach it how to do that initial call. Then to go to, what would you say about that?
Yeah, so I'm very interested, I guess you would say, in the artificial intelligence world. Most So I've demoed two different softwares, Air AI, and then another one, I forget the name of it. Um, they're not
We've used
quite there
Ariage.
yet. They're
Yeah, they're
they're
not.
not they're not quite there yet. There's a little too much of like lag,
Lag.
and just like the
Yeah.
the smallest lag will kill it, where it doesn't sound like a real person or whatnot. But it's going to be there. I would say in the next 12 to 24 months, we're going to be dialed in from a setter standpoint, and we might even get there from a closer standpoint. I think for years I thought there's no way they'll be able to do it from a closer standpoint, but I am starting to lean that it could get there. It's got to be well programmed. It's got to be well trained. It's got to be, from the best in the world, have to be writing those, in if then statements from a standpoint, and like going down all the different veins. But yeah, I think it's a new and exciting thing that we'll see in the next 12 to 24 months. I don't believe, like I said, they're quite there. It will change the game. It'll drastically reduce the amount of labor and cost, because cost of acquisition is the largest expenditure for any business,
Mm-hmm.
with marketing and sales commission, especially in the info world.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is so. If there's ways that AI can help the marketing side and really hone those in, and then just the nurturing and lead and setter and closer side, yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, that's some part of me. I was like, maybe I should wait until like they were saying, just a couple more months. They think theirs is going to be, because I listened to it. It's like just from 90 days ago, what it's doing now compared to 90 days ago. There's not like much of a lag at all. It's a
Right.
trip. So I'm all,
Right.
maybe I should. This has
Yeah.
been amazing, Chris. So I always end it with this way. First of all, tell everyone again where they can contact you. Go follow him on socials. He is amazing. He's got great information, and he has a great heart. Can tell this guy's really the real thing. So make sure you go follow, follow, follow. And then where else? Where else can they? What would you like to
So yeah,
send them? And
social. So yeah, on socials, just at Chris Lee QB, like quarterback. That's on all the major social platforms, and then of course you talked about my podcast, the Founder Podcast. Those are great. Most of my viewership is on Spotify. I get like 180,000 hours a month of watch time on Spotify. So, yeah, you're more than welcome to find me there. And then what was your other question?
just and don't hang up when we're done, because I want to talk to you about your course. But
Yeah.
my other question is, what is the one piece of advice, whether it's business or personal, that you would give? Any kind of advice you want. What would it be to our listeners?
So biggest thing, advice is like, do not silo the different aspects of life. Like, so for me, there's four aspects. You got your physical, economic, associations, and spirituality. How you do anything is how you do everything. And when you trigger discipline in the physique standpoint, and you eat right and you take care of your body, that's naturally going to translate into better relationships. That's going to naturally translate into more discipline at work and everything else. And if a principle is true, it applies to every area of life. And there's just really no way to cheat success that isn't ultimately fleeting.
Ooh, I love it. I love that. I totally agree. I always say, when I talk about abundance or wealth, I don't mean just money. I mean, philanthropy, your relationship with your spouse, being a parent, like health, wellness, it's all of it. And it's I noticed that to be very true. Chris, this is really, I have had a great time with you. Thank you so much, everyone. Please go follow him.
Okay.
He has been amazing. I appreciate how much value you gave. And every single thing you talked about is true to the business that you're in right now. It is across all boards. He taught home service-based businesses. So this applies to you. And the fact that he did what he did coming from where he came from just goes to show you that you can do it too. Now remember, implementation is what counts, not knowledge. So make sure you go out there and implement. Chris, thank you. Have a great day. We're so fired up. Bye, everyone.
I'm Krista. If you'd like to learn more about this strategy and many more, do me a favor, sign up somewhere on this event, on this page for my event, Unstoppable Agent. It's virtual. You can take everywhere home. It's less than a couple cups of coffee, and I guarantee you that you will learn more in the first day than you will learn all year in real estate. And guess what? If you don't think so, I'll give you your refund. Click the link somewhere on this page. I'm Krista. See you soon. Have a great day. Thanks so much for watching my video. You can learn more about how to be a successful real estate professional by watching other videos that I have. And be sure to subscribe to my channel. And as always, make it a great home selling and buying day.